What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Butt and Breneman Show. This morning when I woke up, I had one single tear because I was reminded, Adam, that we are up against the wall with this being the final game of the of the season, the national championship. Yeah. Our show is about to go on hiatus sometime soon, so let's make it a good one, as it always is. How you doing, man? We haven't touched base since the semifinals, so I know we're going to do a big preview here, but I'd like to give you the floor to talk about your alma mater, a frustrating loss, Penn State coming up short against Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, sad that this is probably our last show of the year, or one of the last, but we'll be back. I mean, listen, the Big Ten is going to come back with a vengeance next year as well, and I think it'll be a good year. So I'm excited. It's been a fun year, Jake, so far. Would have been more fun if we had Penn State in the national championship game.
Yeah.
I was there in Miami. I think you were at the Cotton Bowl, right? So you didn't get to see it in person. I'll say this: Penn State played hard. Was a great season for Penn State. This was a Penn State team that deserved to be in the Final Four. They played at an extremely high level and 13 wins this season. Ultimately, their offensive explosiveness haunted them in the fourth quarter of the game against Notre Dame. And Penn State controlled most of this game. I mean, really felt like a Penn State victory throughout the probably first three quarters of the game. To me, the glaring error in the game, Jake, was that Penn State decided not to go to overtime with 30 seconds left. And I think it's easy. I'll say this. It's easy to have a kind of hindsight's 2020 approach right now and view that drive at the end of the game as, here's what Penn State should have done. And I know that if Penn State would have taken a knee there and gone to overtime, there probably would have been some boos in the crowd, right? Like, I mean, everyone wanted Penn State to go try to win it. But I think the reality is you have a Penn State team who gets the ball on their own 25-yard line with 30 seconds left with a receiver room that hasn't won a one-on-one matchup all season long.
Yeah.
Against Notre Dame secondary, that's the strength of their team. So now you ask your quarterback to be in a really tough spot and try to win the game with his arm when your receivers can't get open. You kind of, a tight end like Tyler Warren isn't that valuable in a 2-minute type drill or a 30-second type drill like that. The offensive line has to hold up against the Notre Dame defensive line. And you put Drew Allar in a really tough spot, and that's not the strength of Penn State. You go to overtime, Penn State can run their offense. They can run the football. They can use 12 personnel. They can go play action. They have the whole menu in front of them. Instead of attacking a Notre Dame secondary with 30 seconds to go, backed up inside your own 30, and that was a risk Penn State took, and it ultimately was the wrong choice. And again, Drew Allar can't make that mistake, but they put him in a really bad spot. And I think the other glaring part for Penn State is just that the lack of talent in their wide receiver room has been an issue for a while. And I think it's a disservice to Drew Allar, really, and their 5-star quarterback, that they don't have more talent at that position to win for him one-on-one. But overall, I think the number that jumps out to you for Penn State in the game on a positive note is 200 yards rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns, dominated the time of possession. If you would have told me, Jake, going into that game that Penn State was rushing for 200 with 3 on the ground, I would have put a mortgage on Penn State to win the game. Until you show me Drew Allar goes 12 of 24 or something like that in an interception. So I think that was kind of the storyline of the whole thing. But disappointing for Penn State fans, but a heck of a season for the Nittany Lions.
Man, I wish we could do an hour-long podcast on this alone. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. One, which is you don't just say we're playing to win in the 2-minute scenario. There has to be a weight of going down, trying to score, which would mean your receivers who had 0 catches for 0 yards on the day suddenly would have to have 3 catches for 40 yards. Does that give you the best chance to win, or does going into overtime, where, to your point, you'd been able to run the ball, your defense had been stout, obviously running the ball in OT, hindsight's 2020, was the better plan. Drew Allar did not have his best day. No, he did not. That is factual, but there was no separation. And to put a bow on it from my perspective, this is the positive side for our Penn State listeners. Drew Allar is back. Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton are back tonight. At Sutton, Zane Durant. You got a lot of talent coming back. Drew Allar, Singleton, and Allen. And James Franklin and Andy Kotelnicki, there needs to be an absolute force and movement to go get wide receiver talent. Because the thing is, no offense, it's not like Penn State's Iowa, okay? It's not like you got I played with multiple Penn State receivers in the NFL in Denver. They were drafted. There's quality Penn State receivers in the NFL. the developmental program, like guys test well at the combine. There's a history there. So it's shocking to me how Penn State's been unable to go get a dude on the outside. But it has to happen. And if I was a receiver, I'd want to go play with Drew and I'd want to go play in that
Yeah.
system. So it's a big offseason for Coach Franklin. But as we spin it forward, I think maybe the question would be, Notre Dame, Ohio State. What is it that you think is special or unique? What is the recipe for each team? Maybe we could start with Notre Dame that stands out to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, man, it feels, Jake, to me like there's so much talk right now about how talented Ohio State is and how good they are, and I feel like a lot of people are really underestimating this Notre Dame team.
Yeah.
I would say that the strength of this Notre Dame team, without a doubt, is their defense and their secondary, and
Yeah.
how good they are at really, at really stopping the vertical passing game down the field and being creative on defense.
Best man-to-man coverage team in
Yeah,
college football per
without a
PFF.
doubt. And they play cover one the whole game.
Yes.
I mean, they one high safety, cover one, man to man. And here's the thing: Ohio State doesn't see much man to man coverage. I mean,
No.
with their receivers, Jeremiah Smith, Mecca Buka, Carnell Tate, the two running backs, they don't see a ton of man to man. It's going to be interesting. Notre Dame ain't changing what they do in the last game of the season, right?
No.
They're going to play man to man and say, "Go beat us." So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The biggest key to me, Jake, for Notre Dame is Notre Dame secondary has to continue to be elite tacklers in space. That proved to be the ultimate difference against Penn State. The ultimate difference was that Penn State couldn't break a big play there in the second half because Notre Dame tackled so well. It wasn't like Penn State couldn't complete passes, but they got guys on the ground. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, for as well as they ran the football, for the most part, Notre Dame was able to tackle in space and prevent those 8-yard runs from becoming 60-yard runs. And if Notre Dame can't tackle against Ohio State in space, it'll be a long day. But I think Notre Dame secondary and how well they run the football, their tackling will be key in this game. And I think for Notre Dame too, on offense, like the formula.
Hang on. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Okay, I'm getting ahead of you.
A little back and forth here.
Yeah.
A little back because I want to build on. You said some great stuff, and I want to kind of build on that. No one runs man-to-man more than Notre Dame. No one runs man-to-man better than Notre Dame. That interception to close the game against Penn State is a great example of these defensive backs understand alignment, leverage better than anybody. So if you're going to play man-to-man, you have got to understand where your help is, and you have to understand where the sideline is. That gives you the best chance to take away places on the field. They do that as well as anyone. That is a fundamentally sound defensive back end. One of the keys for Notre Dame is the talent gap is real, and it's not a knock on Notre Dame. Ohio State's just that much more talented than everybody in college football.
Yeah.
So how do you if this was a game of the two teams standing in front of each other and boxing for 60 minutes, Ohio State's going to win. The good thing is Notre Dame's defense takes the ball away. They live off turnovers. So can they force turnovers, and how do they do that? I agree that Al Golden and Marcus Freeman, they're not going to change their defensive identity and become a zone team. Okay. But what they can do is mix in 8 to 10, maybe 12 plays where they show a cover one picture pre-snap, something where Will Howard is going through his snap count and thinking, oh, I've seen this coverage before. This is man. And he starts to say, I'm going to throw it to Jeremiah or whoever. And then Notre Dame rolls to a fire zone pressure and drops right underneath the throw and gets an interception. Can you do that 8 to 10 times and then capitalize on your opportunities and force turnovers, and then also try to get in Will's head? I think Will has played phenomenal football all season, but certainly in the postseason, he's dialed in. So that those mind games are going to be key. And then also, Jeremiah Smith, I think what we saw in the Texas game was the danger of Ohio State's offense, because Texas did a great job of taking away Jeremiah. Ibuka had a great game. But here comes Carnell Tate, who would be the wide receiver one at every other school in the Big Ten for the most part, maybe in the country. It just so happens he's playing with 2 first-rounders and one of the great prospects of all time. So that is a real huge challenge for Notre Dame, is you can double team Jeremiah, but you can't double team everybody. And how they go about managing that defensive game plan will be key.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think for Notre Dame's offense, one of the interesting stats I saw, Jake, was that Riley Leonard has been really good this season against the blitz. Whenever teams pressure him, and that's where he can create. That's where he gets a little off schedule. He can create with his legs. He can take off and run the football. He can kind of throw the ball to his one-on-one matchup on the outside. Been really good against pressure. Has been really bad against, in just drop back situations with defenses rushing 4 and being able to get pressure with 4. Now, again, most quarterbacks are bad when teams can drop seven pass cover guys in pass coverage and get home with 4. But that's what Ohio State does. Like, Ohio State's blitz rate isn't very high. I mean, Ohio State's not bringing a ton of pressure. They don't need to. They're getting home with Jack Sawyer and JTT. And so I think Riley Leonard will struggle some in those drop back situations. So the more Notre Dame can get him on the move outside the pocket, and also just the perimeter passing game, like those one-on-one matchups, get the ball in space, get it on the perimeter. You're not going to get a new receiving core, Notre Dame, I'm talking about, in 9 days between Miami and Atlanta, right? So get the bubble screen, the now screens, the quick throws, take some of the pressure off Leonard. It's, and you mentioned the boxing metaphor, like that quick game is like it's like you're a boxer offensively, the jab, but then you come in with the left hook, right? Like, just get the ball in space. There will be explosive plays available as the game goes on if Riley Leonard doesn't try to force the issue and if he doesn't turn the football over.
So that's and again, like, neither they're not going to change who they are. And I think Riley Leonard, and this speaks to something bigger, that what is being discredited is the alignment and cohesion of Notre Dame as a football team. The way those guys talk about one another and the way they believe in their head coach and Marcus Freeman, it's rare and it's special, and that means something. They've stood in the face of adversity and continually risen. I mean, their back has been against the wall since that loss to NIU, and they've played effectively perfect since then. Riley Leonard in the Penn State game, he didn't throw for 400 yards on 30 of 35, but he made some key throws. The ball placement on the back shoulder, the ability to find the wide receivers, that's going to be key here for Notre Dame as well.
And you, Jake, to add to your point real quick, being there on the sidelines for this game, in the Orange Bowl, it sounds a little corny, but I'm going to say it. Like, you could feel Notre Dame's level of connectivity and how much this program cares about each other. Like, you could feel it being down there. I kind of spent time between the two sidelines, and Penn State has it too. Like, they've been, obviously we know that James Franklin's great at that, but I've never been around this Notre Dame team. They care about their head coach, and you could feel they care about Riley Leonard. You could just feel the energy, and that is Notre Dame's path to victory. Take out the X's and O's. Notre Dame's path to winning this championship is to let that be on full display, play for your teammates, don't make mistakes, tackle well in space, and don't turn the football over. That's Notre Dame's formula for how they win.
And I'll add in turnovers, right, of course, but then special teams is another big thing where Marcus Freeman has proven to have his team prepared for special teams. Field goal kicking, if I had to trust a kicker, it's definitely Jeter from Notre Dame. I think he's 7 of 8 in the postseason. Was 2
game-winning
against
kick.
Penn State. So and Ohio State does not trust their kicker. So that's another thing. What Ohio State has done defensively this postseason has been kind of insane. So I don't know if you've seen this, but Ohio State's been playing a too high shell. So for our viewers, you get into too high, those safeties that's insurance for the pass game. Too high cover 2 you call that to stop the pass. But what they've done is they've taken Jordan Hancock, who's their nickel, and put him at safety next to Lathan Ransom. And then Caleb Downs, they've invented a new position. No other defense is running this. He's in a rover spot. So Caleb Downs sits there about 10 yards over the ball, 10 yards from the line of scrimmage over the ball. And what you normally do as an offense is you ever hear the guy say, hey, kill. You have checks. It's a 2 high, 1 high check. If a defense is in 2 high, because the safeties are back and out of there, you call a run. If it's 1 high, obviously the extra safety's in the box. That's hard to run into, so you call a pass. Well, teams are seeing Ohio State in a 2 high shell with Caleb Downs 10 yards back over the line of scrimmage, and they're saying, let's run the ball. Except for the fact that Caleb Downs is playing like a rover, a heat-seeking missile role, and he all of a sudden gives that Buckeye defense advantageous numbers. The entire Buckeye defensive line NFL defensive line. The linebackers are playing some of their best football all season. Then here comes Caleb Downs with the freedom, it appears, per Jim Knowles, to just go find the ball and get the ball. It's
Yeah.
been really hard. We've seen now multiple teams try to run Tennessee, Oregon, and Texas and fall short.
Yeah.
Simply, there's been no space and no ability to run, and they're doing it out of a too high shell, which takes away the deep passing game and helps their corners. I don't know how Notre Dame is going to move the ball consistently and score against this defense. I think
Yeah.
for Notre Dame to win, it would have to be a 21-20 type game or a 21-17 type game. This Buckeye defense, you're not going to win running the ball into the teeth of their defense. And that's Notre Dame's heavily reliant on the run game.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. It's a great breakdown by you. You want to talk about Ohio State's offense a little bit? I mean, I think to me, a guy who didn't have the biggest game in the Cotton Bowl, but I think will have a big one in this one, is Quinshon Judkins. If this feels to me like the Quinshon Judkins game, because he's just a little bit bigger than Trayvon Henderson. I think his style of running is better against a Notre Dame defense that has been really good against the run, that's physical and plays hard at the point of attack. And I think Ohio State's going to want to reward Quinshon Judkins a little bit for how hard he played without the ball against Texas. I mean, you saw that block he had on the Trayvon Henderson long play. So I think getting Quinshon Judkins going for Ohio State's offense is the path to rushing for 150 yards. The other guy too, Jake, is I see this kind of being a G. Scott big game for the tight end. I mean, Ohio State's going to see how Penn State used Tyler Warren against Notre Dame's defense and how they moved him around and how they got him some touches. Think about all the talent outside for Ohio State with Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Buka and Cardinal Tate, as you mentioned. This is going to be a game where Ohio State and Chip Kelly and Ryan Day have had some new ideas for how to get their big boy tight end the ball a little bit. And I think that the difference between G. Scott and Tyler Warren is that G. Scott is surrounded by 3 NFL wide receivers who's going to take a lot of pressure off him. So I think G. Scott could kind of have a big day against this Notre Dame defense.
G. Scott is a great story. He was originally recruited as a wide receiver, so he has that background, but he looked around the Ohio State receiver room and realized, hey, my path to getting significant playing time is a tight end. So he put on the weight, but he has that background and he's a natural pass catcher. Very underrated weapon in their offense. The running backs are a great story. Trayvon Henderson, when healthy, has been throughout his career one of the best running backs in college football, but he's always been beat up. And part of the reason Ohio State went to go get Quinshon Judkins was so Trey didn't have to carry all the weight, and so he would be fresh and ready at this point in the season. That's what you're seeing. These two backs have helped each other stay fresh. They both have pop and fresh legs. The exact opposite of Notre Dame, whose star running back Jeremiah Love is beat up. So one final stat for you. PFF tracks these things. Chip Kelly, the Buckeye play caller, traditionally calls a lot of zone. His history is as a zone scheme play caller. Well, they've been running gap scheme. I know where you're going with this. Gap scheme. And Notre Dame is struggled to stop the run against the gap scheme. They're graded 75th in college football stopping the gap scheme, 91st, I want to say, in yards per carry after contact when facing the gap scheme. So some of those advanced stats favor the Buckeyes.
And to echo your point there, Jake, on the gap scheme run game, I don't care what the heck they run. Ohio State has to establish the run in this game. And I was looking at some of their previous games. Think about the Michigan game, held to under 80 yards, lose that game. Penn State game in a very similar style and pace. They win the game by rushing for 180, 190 yards. Then Texas game in the Cotton Bowl. They're back to, they were held to 80 yards rushing in that game. And reality is Ohio State didn't play that well on offense in that game. I mean, they had 14 points and then they got the 28 with a 75-yard screen pass before half and a 90-yard sack fumble. So they didn't establish the run very well. I really see this as Ohio State must find a way to run the football because Notre Dame is probably the best team in the country that's going to have the best chance at stopping or slowing down the Ohio State passing attack. So Ohio State establishing that run with those gap schemes, with that banged up offensive line that's become, and playing like one of the best in the country despite the injuries they've had. is going to be key.
Yeah, the pressure of it's going to be so hard to move the ball and score against the Buckeye defense. And then if they're running the ball and controlling the clock, like the pressure that builds from that is insurmountable for a lot of teams. All right, got to let us go here. Wrap it up, put a bow on it. Score predictions. Start with you, Adam. How do you see this game playing out?
I got Ohio State winning 27-20. I think it's a battle. I think Notre Dame plays well. I have them covering, but ultimately, I don't think Notre Dame has enough in the tank offensively to find 4 scores, which is what they're going to need to win this game. And Ohio State, I see just being too good on defense, too much skill on offense. Jeremiah Smith, this isn't going to be another Jeremiah Smith 1 catch for 3 yards game. They're going to find a way to get their best player the ball a bunch. He's going to have a big one as well.
Yep. Okay. That's I'm with you in a sense that I respect Notre Dame. Been a fun story. I respect Marcus Freeman, but there is explosive plays to be made against man coverage. And I fear for Notre Dame, they're going to learn that really quick. I got Ohio State winning 31-17. I think just this is the final nail in the coffin for the Buckeyes to realize what they set out to do this season. And when they arrange this roster with the talent and the resource commitment, they are, had they not lost against Oregon and Michigan, of course they did lose, but stick with me. Had they not lost those games and played the way they've been playing, I believe we'd be talking about this team as one of the all-time great teams. I do, but they lost, so we won't. But I think they're going to be too much for Notre Dame. So fun, been a fun year, man. Been a fun year.
Are you going? You at the game?
I'm going.
I'll be there too. Let's get together, all right?
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I'll see you down there, man. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. It's been a fun year with you guys. One final one to go. Maybe you guys can give us a score prediction down in the comments, and we'll comb through and hang out with some of you guys. So that's the Breneman and Butt Show. We will see you next week for a season recap.